Recording now.
Okay, good.
Don't like it, leave.
Okay, so this is the Lee Democratic Committee meeting for June 18th. Welcome back. We have our Lee Select Board members here today. Two of the three at the moment. Hopefully we'll get the third. The third being Scott Bugby. But in the meantime, we have Dave Benson and Rebecca Hawthorne. And we're just going to have a good chat about I guess things that have happened in the last year over the select board and what we can hope for and expect in the coming years. So without further ado, the chair of the Lee Select Board, Rebecca Hawthorne.
Okay, sure. Great. Last year, I guess, the big thing was the building, which unfortunately did not pass. That took up an awful lot of time on the select board between me and Katrin and Mr. Bugby. So that was really unfortunate. We were asked at one point what was happening with the building. We're not actually allowed to spend any money per year on anything. So we are allowed to discuss it. And I think we're going to put it back on the agenda, but we're not actually really allowed to do very much. So the building is kind of on hold until after March of 2025.
Yeah, isn't Andy's supposed to figure out what we're allowed to do and not allowed to do?
So he mentioned at the last meeting that we're allowed to talk about, we just cannot spend any money.
Okay.
And I don't know what your opinion is, but my opinion is maybe we need a break and kind of reset, and maybe some people in the audience have opinions about what could have been done better. I don't know if everybody knows, we chose a form of construction that was design build because it didn't cost us any money. But the problem is that we weren't able to present necessarily the 100% final product because the architects and the builders did not want to invest bazillions of dollars designing us a free building. So the design build process, you kind of get an idea. We got actually many drawings. I was surprised by how much we got. And then we tried to present them, but they weren't 100% finished. And that's what I'm hearing was the main issue. In addition to the kind of 11th hour builder changes to what we were expecting, that they kind of surprised us with, I guess is the nicest way to say that. So that was why we chose that method, because we didn't have to spend taxpayer money, because you guys have already spent a lot of money in Lee building designs for town building. So we had hoped to do something that was less expensive, but I'm not sure that the town people appreciated that. So that was kind of the big thing we did. We also worked a lot last year on the financial planning tool, which tries to map out all large expenses for like the next 10 to 15 years, and then maps out how we can save for them in equal proportions. So that we're not hit with large sums of money in one particular year where we need a fire truck, which is upwards of $1 million. So we spent a lot of time last year working on trying to figure out how we can space the money out over many years instead of hitting the taxpayers with huge increases. We're also working really hard to make sure that our employees are paid kind of on par with everybody else. So there was that increase that you saw in the budget that you guys all approved. Not you all, but the townsfolk all approved. A lot of the increase in that budget was either just increases in expenses. I mean, like everything costs more. Heat costs more, gas costs more, everything costs more, as I'm sure you all unfortunately know. That was the kind of little things. And then the bigger changes in the budget this past year were salaries and trying to make sure we're actually paying people what they're worth. So we stopped losing firefighters and make sure that we're appreciating the people that we have, because a lot of our staff have been underpaid for a long time compared to everybody around us. Questions?
Yeah, my hope is that Rebecca kind of hit on what I know about. Like I had know nothing that, well, I sort of know what happened before March, but I can't speak to anything that happened before March really. But at the same time I was elected, the new town hall the new municipal building got shut down. As Rebecca said, apparently we're not allowed to spend money on it. I would love to talk about it and figure out a plan to move forward with it. I think whether people realize it or not, it costs the town money. We already own the land. Why do we own the land and not have a building on it? I don't know. And then with the salaries, it's like we have a cost of living adjustment. We theoretically have a pay scale in some departments, but not others. Like apparently the fire department is really good. Feel free to jump in, Rebecca. But the rest of the town is not as diligent as the fire department. I think that needs to be standardized and sort of fixed so that we're competitive with other towns in the area.
Does anybody have any questions based on what Rebecca and Dave have already said? Susan, why don't you go ahead? Susan, you're muted.
Sorry, I was trying out the baby monitor. Bring the baby in the background.
She left. Maybe she'll be back. When she comes back, if she's having the same problem, I wonder if there's a way to manually unmute her or a way for us to do it. I guess we'll find out. I guess in the meantime, does anybody else have any questions? Susan is back. Let's see if I can ask you to unmute. I can't.
Okay,
Oh,
I
now
figured
I can
it
hear you.
out. I've never used this before. I've only used Zoom, so I don't know where anything is on here. I'm sorry. I'm
It's
not
okay. We
muted,
can
right?
hear you now. Yes, we
Okay.
can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, what's going on with the old town hall? There's this dumpster kind of thing sitting there, and it almost looks like something's going on there, and I was just wondering.
Yeah, so the dumpster is actually part of the library renovations. The old town hall has a number of problems. One of which was the type of flooring in the old town clerk's office had something in it. I don't remember what exactly. I'm sorry. So we ended up having to paint that with a special type of paint that sealed in. Maybe it was asbestos. I'm not really sure what was in the floor. That sealed it in. The upstairs is blocked off because you can't go upstairs. No heavy furniture can be put on the floor. So it has some issues. But it has been deemed safe for people, just not, like a giant copy machine. If we used to strategically place those things on the floor of the town hall to make sure they had proper support. That's fun. So right now we're using it more as community space. So what the select board voted was that the library kind of has dibs, to put it distinctly. They give their calendar to Denise. She blocks off the time that they're doing their programming there. And then anybody else who wants to use that space can certainly talk to Denise, and it's the same rules as any other town space. So it is community space, though with the caveat that the library programming gets first crack.
So one more thing, the sort of rented town hall there on Route 125. I really, really don't like the idea of the town hall being on 125, which I think is probably one of the most unsafe roads in the state. I've been rear-ended twice on 125, once in Lee and once in Epping. And the second time, the one in Lee, I probably almost died because the idiot who hit me was going 55, hit the back corner of my car, on the passenger side, and pushed me into oncoming traffic diagonally across the road. And I am just lucky that the person who was coming toward me was able to pull off into that little dirt road on the side. And this was, by the restaurant there. And this was right next to where that town hall is, so-called town hall is. It's just a really dangerous place to have a town hall built, something functioning as a town hall. I think people maybe aren't thinking about that, but it's not a good place for a town hall, in my opinion.
I won't disagree with you. And I will say, Susan, I had almost the exact same car accident on Route 4 trying to get into Emery Farm, except that I got hit twice more by the oncoming traffic, or I hit the oncoming traffic twice more. So my car was actually hit by 3 separate cars. I mean, people are just not paying attention. That's neither here nor there. I will admit that when I go to the town hall, I often enter from the George Bennett. Not great with names of things. I often enter from and exit George Bennett. Even if I'm coming from 125, I'll go up to that turning lane and turn down. I know it takes like an extra minute, but I completely agree. I find 125. I live on Fox.
I do the same thing. I won't go in or out from 125.
No.
It terrifies me.
No, I completely agree. And it's not a great building. The select board at the time, and I was not on the select board, so I don't have all the details, but they were able to negotiate a lower rent, but we pay all of the maintenance. And it's not a great building anyway. So there's quite a bit of maintenance that happens on a regular basis, or has happened over the last couple of years since we've been in there. The only advantage, of course, is we have 3 separate doors, so we get better security. I don't know that there's any other building that currently exists that would work. And I think that's really the problem, right? Like, it would be really cool if it was in the Market Basket Plaza in that giant empty store. But I don't know that you could arrange the offices and have enough space in any of those. I'm just not sure that there exists a building that's currently standing that would meet all of the requirements. And unfortunately, with the way the world is, a lot of thought was gone into the plans that we presented this past March for security. How do we make a secure area? How do we make an employees only area? How do we make sure that the builders that come to planning and zoning constantly also have a place they can easily get into? So there's a lot of thought that was put into it. And I'm not sure that there's a building that exists that we could just rent a better one. But I completely agree. I think it's very scary. And I'm glad, I don't know if you noticed, they did pave a large part of that dirt now. So at least that George Bennett entrance is a little bit nicer. But I don't even like driving through that parking lot either with the giant trucks, because giant trucks frighten me.
Well, I just am frustrated that the town voters are not okaying new town hall.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if everybody here voted yes. If you didn't vote yes and you voted no, I'd love to hear why.
I did vote yes. I've been voting yes. I want it to happen.
So did I, especially after the many, many, many hours that we put into it. But it was really a sad day for me.
Yeah, my impression is that it almost passed. It was almost 50-50, and voters don't know what they don't know. I don't think people that voted no realize it's still costing money to rent the space that we're in right now, and there are drawbacks to it, and people just saw the bottom line. It's going to cost money, and they just say no, and they don't care otherwise.
Would you correct me if I'm wrong, but because it was a bond, it needed 2/3 passage, right? It wasn't just a simple majority, or am I remembering that
was it?
incorrectly?
Was it simple majority, or was it? It may have been. You might be right.
Yeah, let me double check. I can find out for you. I have that information.
What I agree. I thought
Turn
that
that-
from the start.
It had to be 60%, I think.
If it's 60%, then it would have to be a super majority.
Sorry, I'm just looking for the correct folder in my information. That's operating budget majority $2,000. $2,000. Where did we put it? 3/5, I believe. Yeah, so 60%.
That's okay.
Yeah,
Has
so
there
we only
been-
got like close to 50%, basically.
Has there been any thought about buying the building we are currently renting?
So that was not something. So the history that I have been told is that the gentleman who owns that was not interested in that at the time that we signed the lease. I also not sure we want to buy the building that we're in. I mean, Susan already pointed out the many flaws of the location. It's really not, from what I understand, the world's best building. And there's some issues. I don't know that I'd want to buy the building. In addition to its location, I mean, it would be really nice if everything were kind of in that center, right? We don't have the largest downtown, but it's, I mean, we do have like our little, like the library and the little school and the old town hall. I mean, it would be really nice to kind of create that space. And one of the things we were hoping with also putting it right next to the library is that when the library does have these bigger events, especially in the evening when everything else is closed, that the parking lot for the old town hall would be accessible. We had a little pathway so people could walk between the two parking lots. And so you would have that extra parking space. So we wouldn't have so much overflow kind of, on the street.
So then, if I recall correctly, there was a specific committee related to the town hall. Is that committee still functioning? Are they still working?
The select board kind of was that committee this past year. And past year, I mean like last March 23 to March 24, because we didn't want to ask another group of people to like invest time and effort. So we did it ourselves. I don't know if that was the best plan or not, but volunteers are hard to come by here. And we kind of felt like it would be there have been at least 2 previous committees, if I remember correctly. I wish Mr. Bugbee was here because he definitely has been around longer than me and has a better grip on the history. But I believe there were 2 previous committees, both of which failed. The articles failed. And so we kind of felt bad asking another group to take it on. So we took it on ourselves. And so that, no, it's not really functioning at the moment because now it's still just the select board. So, Mary, did you raise your hand? Do you have a question?
I did raise my hand. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
So, I've been kind of informally starting to collect a bit of information from people who voted no on the building. And I think, especially given the history of the building being turned down, the next time around, it needs to be explained more carefully. The total proposition. First of all, there are the people who resented the bait and switch at the last minute. Secondly, a person we know who's a tech guru thought it didn't adequately reflect what is now known about how efficiencies of technology can affect a space and save money. Another person thought that renting is cheaper, and because the town offices aren't open all the time, there would be better ways to use space than allocating space to separate departments, sharing space, because not everybody's open every day. So I think there is a variety of reasons that people voted no. And I think especially since the town has been through this loop 2 or 3 times, next time, for example, related to that issue of renting versus buying, one person thought that renting is cheaper, but I don't think people know the extra things that we're paying for under the contract we have for that building. They also don't know that the understanding is that the renting that building is not an option as far as I know. So I think there are just a number of details that need to be flushed out next time we go this loop.
Any thoughts, Mary, on how to get that information out? Because we had multiple information sessions and the deliberative session, and we had the information out on the Facebook and on our town website. And
well, I think we'd have to make a list of those specific questions and answer them. For example, is renting cheaper?
we actually had a spreadsheet for that that we had in that material, unfortunately.
And did it talk about what we are paying for the upkeep of the building that we're currently renting?
Part of it. A lot of the spreadsheet predicts the future, which you can't necessarily predict the future of upkeep. Obviously, if you own the building, there's your own upkeep anyways. So that's a hard numeric value to calculate because there's not enough information about that. But we did have a whole spreadsheet about how much rent was, plus the escalators in the rent versus the bond. And there's definitely some years where the bond is more expensive. I'm not going to lie to anybody, but over time, right? Like rent just keeps going up, the bond goes down, and then eventually the bond goes away and you own the building.
But did it just talk about the cost of rent, or did it get into those aspects of the building that we've had to pay for because we're in the building?
I believe that was discussed, but that was not in that spreadsheet because the spreadsheet was about the future. But I hear what you're saying. I wrote it down. So I will, actually, David, you should write it down because I'm not going to be there the next time this happens. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I don't know how better to reach people either. It was proving a difficult task.
What happened to the Beatles?
Yeah, I mean, I can say, building up to this, like I didn't have a lot of information. Like it didn't filter down to me, and I feel like, I'm a pretty informed person, and it was hard for me to dig up information on the bond. Like I don't know what can be done to, be more informative, but that definitely needs to be figured out.
Are you taking notes, David, so you can do this better?
And what I would do is answer the specific questions. As I said, I plan to dig more deeply into this, and then I think it should be answered in terms of the phrasing or the context that people raised the issues, not just numbers in a spreadsheet, like, is renting cheaper? And then have an answer that goes directly to that, not a spreadsheet.
Okay, I will make Dave write that down for later.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking some notes on some of this. Like, it frustrates me because, in the long term, it is cheaper to own rather than rent, and that's how it is for just about everything. And this situation is no exception to the rule. And it blows my mind that this keeps getting shot down. And like like I said, people don't know what they don't know. And I just I felt like I voted with half information, and then the information was changed at the last minute, which that baffles me as well. That looked bad.
Yep. Susan?
Am I muted? No. So I hate to suggest this, but one way to reach people that you can be sure you reach them, although it's not interactive, is the US mail. But that could be kind of expensive.
Yeah.
To mail every voter in town.
Yeah,
Another,
like a postcard or just something basic with a couple of basic questions. Is it more expensive to rent or to buy, or
well,
to own?
no, if you were going to mail everybody, you would mail them a persuasive piece. It could be in a letter type form, an actual 1 or 2 page letter that explained things. That's one way to do it. And another way might be, I'm coming at this from my experience working for Carol Shea Porter's campaigns. And trying to communicate with voters. You could have a teletown hall. They tend to be a bit expensive, but they're interactive. You could contact every voter in the town, and you could invite them to the call, and then you could moderate it yourselves. You could make a pitch type statement at the beginning, explaining everything that you thought of anyway, and then you would open it to questions. Just designate somebody to let people ask their questions. People can also write questions out, and it's pretty flexible. I don't know how much it costs, but if you really want to reach everyone, you can do it that way. We used to do it for the entire congressional district. That's it. That's my 2 suggestions.
Okay, Nada has her hand raised. Why don't we give her a shot?
I just wonder how many people in the community expect to be here long enough to benefit from having higher taxes. Is it a mindset of keeping my taxes low now because who knows where I'm going to be in the future? I don't know what the array of people in the town might be among the voters. And that may be a hard nut to crack. Just a thought. That's not a solution, that's a problem.
No, it's definitely a problem. And I definitely think there's a group of people in the town who are like, wait a second, last time we needed a building, we all got together and built it. It's definitely something I heard multiple times. So things have really changed. And we also, we do have an aging population who are on fixed incomes. And I think it's scary to take out a bond and raise taxes more when you're already seeing the school budget go up and the town budget go up and, library renovations. And, it's a lot of things, especially when we got the middle school bond that we just got, 2 years ago? Like, it's a lot of money. And I do fully recognize that. We've been trying to find grants. We're definitely looking. The police chief and the library actually are very good at finding grant money. So we're hoping to kind of pay for things that way and lower taxes. So maybe this will be easier to say yes to. But I don't know, unfortunately. We're working with Madberry. We're trying to work with Madberry about combining some of our services so that we can spread the cost amongst more people. I just lost my train of thought. There's something else we were doing to try to save money. It'll come back to me. But we are definitely looking at if we can partner with Madberry on some things so we can kind of spread that a little bit thinner, so that we can not pay as much there. And so then hopefully maybe not have to raise taxes, and then it will be a little easier to say yes to a building.
One of the things that I've been thinking about is that when we were marketing this thing, that it's not the cost of building versus the cost of not building. It's the cost of building versus the cost of renting. And that those 2 numbers side by side should tell the story. The old town hall, that building that we've been using since the 19th century. Imagine if we had rented that building all these years instead of having owned it from the very beginning. It seems like an obvious comparison, but perhaps I'm wrong.
Truthfully, if you look at the numbers, it's a very hard comparison because the bond is more expensive. So you don't start seeing real savings till, I don't think I have it in front of me, year maybe 10 or 15. But
Yeah, I'm gonna say like I looked at it briefly, and I think you're right. I think it was like a decade. You start seeing a cost benefit.
I turned it.
Mary?
Mary, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, this is Bob, Mary's husband.
Bob.
One of the questions that might address the financial issues, if you've got the land, how much of a building could be built on the lot between the church house and the historic society building that could be bonded for exactly the same annual payment as we're paying for the rent and utilities now?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I hear what you're saying. What we had looked at was how much of a building could we, or how much could we afford if we took our rent and the old bond that we were paying on the public safety complex, which we recently paid off. So we took those kind of two numbers together and looked at it that way. Since obviously we've now paid off the public safety complex bond, I don't know, we can ever do that again and make it feel like it's not a huge increase.
Well,
Which means it's
I'm
probably a
asking,
much smaller building.
I'm asking for what building could be built with the rent that we are now paying and the repairs and upkeep that we are now paying for the rented town hall.
I believe that our rent right now is about $60,000 a year. So I'm not sure how much a bond would be a $60,000 a year payment. I'm not sure if it's enough to be worth building a building.
Well, I think it's $60,000 a year. That's just rent, but part of it is the maintenance too. So it's probably a little more than $60,000. But I think you're right. I don't think that's gonna cut it as far as ownership is concerned, at least in the short term. Like you don't see financial benefit till it. I think, like I said, I think it's at least a decade.
Well, one of the questions is the length of the bond. The payment over 25 years could be different than the payment over 10 years.
That's a really good point. There's also, you could presumably have a bond with a lower monthly payment that has a balloon at the end. And then you just essentially refinance the bond at the end when the balloon is due, so that you could, instead of paying it off 10 or 15, you could conceivably pay it off over 20 or 30.
Yeah, I think with all the other middle school and the library, the selling point to the citizens, I think, is going to be we're going to get a building that will eventually we'll own, but we're not going to have to pay higher taxes for it.
I think if you could figure out a way to do that, you could much more easily sell that to the town voters. I really do. And make the point that $60,000+ a year is just going down the drain for a building that's not great and is located in a dangerous place.
And to David's point, that I think it is more than 60,000 a year, because I've been told that we've had to pay for some pretty expensive maintenance on that building. I don't know what the numbers are, but somebody said.
Yeah, I mean, the building kind of sucks, to be completely blunt about it. It's not the best building. It's not the best location. And I feel like we got suckered into a deal where, we were responsible for maintenance, and it's getting to an age where the maintenance is starting to get expensive.
So Tom has his hand raised. So Tom, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I just got in, so I'm getting used to all of this, but it does work pretty well on my iMac, and I'm keeping my lights off. I've heard this discussion in many other communities. It seems to me you have to really have the math solid, whatever you're talking about, so that other people can't skew it or misinterpret it. It used to always be that it was better to own than to rent, and that the initial cost you would save over time. But the market is really tricky. I was at a meeting last week, and they said the average cost has gone up to $385 a square foot because of all the construction costs. So I think someone really needs to have those numbers tight. But if you can do that and figure out rent and rent going up over time and all of those things, even if it came out about even, it's a lot better to own something. And I think some of, I wasn't part of this, but obviously last minute changes and all that sort of thing does not help. But I wish you luck, because this is being talked about all over the state and large and small communities. You have to sometimes, obviously think outside the box. I worked in Rye, which is a well-to-do community, but we really had old buildings. And after a lot of work, what we did is we renovated both schools at the same time, which no one would have ever recommended because it was a chaotic year and a half. But we did it. It saved us money on construction. We got more state aid. And someone just figured out, even though the average person said we don't want to do two at once. And we were able to sell it to the community. It was quite expensive, but then it was done. And I'm not saying that would apply directly to Lee, but I just think, again, having someone really look at the math and get it accurate, and then look at your math and say, well, what are the selling points based on this math?
Thanks, Tom. So we've been talking for about 40 minutes or so about the town hall. I'm wondering if we have any other topics in town that we'd like to discuss. Susan, go ahead.
Sure would be nice to have a turn lane right there by the town hall and that restaurant. A center lane so that people don't whack into each other when they stop to turn. It's such a
agree.
dangerous place.
I want to say that there was like an issue with the width of the road or something, like a turn lane couldn't be added there. But I agree with you completely. I think there should be a turn lane.
There's room on a little bit of room on the opposite side. I agree. The restaurant can't be moved, but the other side, there's some room.
So that is a state road, so we actually don't have any control over that road. But I know that the road, there was a piece of it that was widened. In order for us to move the town hall there, the Department of Transportation did review the plans, and there was work that was done in that space. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I know that they did review that, and I do not think the state wanted to put in a turning lane.
Yeah, well,
It
Okay,
takes years. My personal experience with getting that light in on 152 and 125, that was many years project. And what you're talking about would be very lengthy.
well, I guess there's no time like the present to get it started, though.
DOT is in charge.
Nada, is that why you raised your hand, or did you have something else?
Yes,
you wanted
that's
to say?
why I raised my hand.
Okay.
Sorry,
I figured that,
butted
by
in.
the way, Nada. I figured that, but it will never happen if you never start. I don't know.
Tom, you've got your hand raised.
Am I on? Yeah, I'm on mic. I was just going to add my 2 cents. I do not enjoy I-25 at all, and I avoid it at all costs. because I've had people pass me and going way over the line and on and on and on. So I think it somehow should be designated as a dangerous road in need. My other small piece, just in my role as representative, I really do appreciate these meetings, and thanks to Amanda and everyone who organizes them, because it really lets me see the people and hear what's going on and what's similar and different in Lee. I also wanted to say I get emails from Lee residents every single week about the bills in Concord, and I think that tells me something about who lives in Lee. Because whether it's education or voter rights or whatever, there are people emailing me. Literally, I get some every single week. Please vote for this, support that, whatever. And I think that really says something about Lee. And they're different people. So that's just my 2 cents. We can harness that. Good.
Okay. Let's see. What else is going in town that we want to talk about? I know from the Energy Commission that our original plan for community power is looking like it's not going to happen. We're going to do something a bit different. I know I could go on about this for a little while, but maybe somebody else would like to go on about this for a little while.
Somebody like me and Dave,
Yeah,
or
yes.
as well. So we did have that. We did have the thing with community. Oh my lord, the agreement with community power. We have switched over to. I was just looking in my notes to get the name because I'm not great with
Yeah,
always
it's not
with the name.
community power anymore. I don't
Yeah.
know that my notes aren't in front of me from the select board meetings, but yeah, we're attempting a new company that works with Durham and some of the other surrounding municipalities.
Yes, if you watched the recording, Andy read all of them. It was super fun and exciting for all of us. Yeah, so we've moved over to Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, which does work with Durham and has gotten them a pretty good rate. Previous select person, Casper, highly approves them, and then she's actually in that industry. They hired a new person, they've redone their model. So she thought that going with them would be a great idea. And then they're looking at being able to present us with hopefully a lower power energy rate. Looks like the end of the month, beginning of July, we should get a presentation, and then we'd be looking at possibly October as a lower rate.
Yeah, that wasn't don't they basically base their rates on not the co-op but the other one.
Eversource?
Eversource. Yeah, because it was like 8.5, but it'll be less than Eversource's rates, I think.
Yeah, we were not going to go with them if they're going to charge us more money. That would be silly. No, they should be getting better, and there should be multiple choices depending on, how you want to get your energy, but there should be a rate that is lower than the Eversource rate.
Which just keeps going up and up.
Yeah, I think I just saw something about them redoing their delivery charge. So
Yeah.
to go up. That's great. That's great. Wish I felt like I was getting more money for the increase in the delivery charge, or better service, less issues for that increase.
Okay, so we're getting close to 8 o'clock, and I don't want to take up everybody's night. I was maybe Rebecca and David, you could give us your maybe your biggest hope and dream to accomplish in this next year.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see the town, the municipal building move forward, have like a more informed population, because I think it makes sense. That's one of my goals. My other goal, that I kind of alluded to, I don't know if I alluded to it here, but the pay structure for the town, come up with a more standardized pay structure People are worried about taxes. Obviously, the municipal building keeps getting shut down. But take the money that we have and spend it more wisely rather than just pile on additional taxes.
I agree with Dave. I think maybe the next step in the whole building debacle is to assess the buildings that we have, maybe make some choices about which ones we have that we're keeping, which ones we're not keeping, and where we're choosing to spend our maintenance money at the moment. We own a lot of buildings in town, all of which need maintenance. So perhaps we can make some choices about which buildings need to stay and which buildings need to go. And we could maybe more wisely use our maintenance money. But that's a very
Correct me if I'm
hard.
wrong. The total number of buildings owned by the town is unexpectedly high. You wouldn't realize it was as high as it is, although I cannot remember the exact number at the moment.
Correct that. That's more of a perception. I actually do think it's unexpectedly high. I would agree with you. I'm also surprised by the number of buildings that we own and the number and the uses that we have for those buildings and the reasons that we can't get rid of them. I'm sure you all know.
I went down this rabbit hole once, and
Yeah.
I remember being surprised myself
Yeah.
by the number of buildings that the town owns. And so, I seem to remember some of the buildings didn't have any particular use at all, and we still pay for their upkeep.
I'm trying to find. Andy sent me the building inventory not too long ago. We have a lot of buildings that we have upkeep, and we have the salt shed, which is falling apart. We have the highway department building, which is actually the former fire department. We have both the historical society, which is a old train station, I believe, and the annex, which the historical society is currently using. We have the hobo shed. We have, let's see, that's not the right email. We have obviously the old town hall, the library, which is made up of multiple buildings, including the schoolhouse portion, and then other buildings on top of it. We have public safety complex. We always say all the buildings that are at the transfer station. And then we rent our current building. I don't think I've forgotten any of them, but like the hobo shed, there's a certain group of people who want to see the hobo shed well taken care of because there is historical significance, but we use the hobo shed for storage. Like, we're not using it as historical significance. So, and the hobo shed in particular needs a lot of work in the very very near future. So there's definitely some buildings that we're using in interesting ways that maybe need to be reviewed. It may be cheaper in some cases to replace the buildings, say a hobo shed that we're using as storage, with a building meant for storage.
Yeah, just a shed that's meant for storage. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was my impression, was that there's a fair number of those buildings that are preserved for preservation's sake, not because they have any. It's nice to save old things, but at some point you have to make decisions, as unpopular as those decisions are.
Yes, Mary.
This seems an especially important priority given the way that climate extremes are going. I read recently that the insurance industry doesn't really trust any of the existing building codes. And based on their testing facility, which is somewhere down in North Carolina, they think we're going to need much stronger building codes. So this seems important to address this list and get it whittled down.
Yes, Susan.
This is a different topic, but I thought you said something about needing a new fire truck.
I just said we had worked last year on the financial planning tool, which takes those costs that we're going to need in the future and tries to space them out. So instead of needing $1 million the year we need a new fire truck, can we pay $100,000 over 10 years so it doesn't feel like a giant bump? No, we just got a new fire truck.
So you're just planning for one.
We're just planning. Yeah, we have, if you go to the website, you can see a static version of the financial planning tool that shows you all the things we're trying to plan for. Unfortunately,
Okay.
we have things on that tool that we don't know how we're going to pay for yet. So choices are going to have to be made. And part of it is this decision about the buildings or about what we need. You know, that tool has a roof. We have to replace the roof on the hobo shed. Do we need to replace the roof on the hobo shed? I don't know. Maybe we need to replace the hobo shed. I know I'm getting on about the hobo shed. I'm sorry if anybody loves it. I just
Has the town ever tried to get a grant for a fire truck? I know that when I worked for the Congresswoman, I used to edit the letters that that the person who wrote, well, there was somebody who wrote the grant letters, and I used to edit them. So I know that a lot of towns in the first district apply for grants to get fire trucks and other fire equipment.
I don't know.
Homeland Security, maybe it was.
Yeah, I mean, I will certainly bring that up. I don't know that we've ever applied for a grant for a fire truck specifically, but in the last couple of years, we have gotten grants. Like the police chief has some sort of magical ability and is constantly getting grants. So a lot of the equipment that the police have replaced over the last couple of years has all been grant money. And as well as DPW. They've gotten grant money to replace some of the older trucks that are really bad for the environment and need to be replaced. So we've actually gotten a lot of money to replace those trucks, not a fire truck, but still a big ticket item. And the library's done an amazing job getting grants. They've got.
So I think if you were to contact Chris Pappas's district office, they're probably the ones that that write out the grant letters, because that's usually who writes the grant letters. Staffer in there, and they'll know about it. There's it's part of one of the appropriations bills to give little towns that can't afford these big expenses grants. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely are looking for a grant. Like I said, we didn't get one for our fire truck, but we've the last couple of years, all of the department heads have really kicked into high gear training.
That's really good.
Yeah, they've done an amazing job.
Good to hear.
Okay, we have officially hit 8 o'clock. So I think, unless there are any famous last words from anybody, I think now is probably a good time to shut her down. Everybody give me a nod one way or the other. Yes?
Is Tom waving or saying goodbye?
Tom is muted.
Okay.
I'm sure whatever he said was great, though.
No, that was my nod. I think it was a good meeting.
Thank you for coming.
Okay. All right. Very good. So I know Amanda sent out an earlier email regarding the schedule for the rest of the summer and whatnot, but I can't remember it at all right now. So there might be a thumbs down icon floating up here in a second. But before she does that, just let me say, if you haven't read the email, be sure to read it. And I will reread it so that we're off for the summer. That's okay. That's pretty much what I thought it said, but it's good not to say foolish things when we're being recorded. Okay, so with that, I will end at least the recorded session of this meeting, and then we can all go. So thank you very much, Rebecca. Thank you very much, Dave. The next time you see Scott, I don't know what to tell him, but tell him we missed him. That's what. Tell him we missed him.
I'll let him know when I next see him. Select board meeting Monday, always open to the public. So please come if you'd like to share anything or be interested. I am not running again in March of 2025. So if anybody's interested, you've got 9 months to decide you really want to be on the select board.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know. And we've got we've got 9 months to think about it. So, actually, probably less than that. You gotta
Yeah,
file
that's fair.
beforehand. So
You have 9 months to win another position.
9 months to win. You can start campaigning now. Okay. Thank you, everybody. This was great.
I think I'm
Have a good night.
recording.
Right.
The recording was saved in a Morgan. Okay. Amanda, it looks like the recording will be saved in your Google Drive, is what it's telling me. Okay. I'm going to stop the recording then.